Decentralization Media.
Hi, I am Mr. M. The topic that we are going to look today it's about what is blockchain and how we can simply explain blockchain. So, what is blockchain? So, blockchain is, in terms of theoretically explained, blockchain is a process or a technology that we can use to transfer any assets between two untrusted parties in a trusted manner. So, for example, as assets, we can transfer any money, or else we can transfer any assets like products, or else goods, or else even we can use data as assets. So, we can transfer any amount of assets in between two untrusted parties in a trusted manner. So, let's see how it happens. So, for example, if you have $100 and you want to transfer that $100 to Mr. X, and you both are not trusted each other, so you have trust issues with Mr. X, and Mr. X has trust issues with you. So then what happens is you can't make transaction with another untrusted person, because once you made this $100 transactions, mistakes can come anytime and say that he didn't receive this money, or else he can say that he only received $10 instead of 100. And the same issues mistakes also has, that maybe he had trust issues that you won't transfer this $100 to him, or else you'll be transferred $10 and you will be mentioned as $100. So in these cases, what we are doing it, we are going to a middle person. So that middle person, you and mistakes both trusting that middle person, so then we'll be do the transaction in front of them, or else in through them. So once we're making these transactions, then we knows that if there's any issues happens, we can go to that third party, and then we can use them as evidence for these transactions. And even if you transfer $100 to the mistakes, and if mistake saying that he didn't receive $100, then he can easily go you can easily go to the third party and ask them to be evidence for these transactions. But what happens is, as it's the one other person as acting as a third party, then he can easily get compromised. We can bribe him, or else we can convince him to say that it's only $10 and it's not $100, or else we can ask him to convince and say that once you transfer $10, we can ask him to convince and say that it's only $100 you transferred, not $10. So because of this, what we can use is we can get rid of this middleman, and we can use a group of people. So for example, you can do this transaction in front of 50 or 100 people, but still that compromise issues is there, because it's one way is it's more secure, because rather than doing with one person, you're doing in front of 100 people, so then at least 100 people will be seeing this as evidence. So at least 51% of these people need to be compromised to make this as a false transaction. And to compromise 51% of people, that is very costly in times as well as very costly in money. So you need to give money, or else you need to convince them so long, so that will be high cost, and time will be wasted as well. So that is very difficult if you're using at least 50 or 100 people in a third party as these transactions. But what if you can use all the populations in the world as witness for these transactions? So that will be more secure, and that will be that will provide more security for these transitions, because you are doing a transition that front of billions of people that are watching all around the world. So once you make this transition, either of you can't make any changes into these transitions, because that is witnessed by so much of billions of people. And even if you want to do some changes, or else if you want to convince them, at least you need to convince 51% of those people. So that is too costly in the time, and that is very difficult in terms of convincing people around the world. But how we can connect these all the people around the world to witness these transitions? When the Satoshi Nakamoto was created this Bitcoin blockchain, he was connected all these people through internet. As we are using internet and we are connecting each other through internet, we can easily use this internet to connect each and every person in the world to witness these transactions. So he used this mechanism, and he created this Bitcoin blockchain where each of the users can use their mobile app, or else laptop, or else any desktop computers, and they can easily connect to this Bitcoin blockchain. So once you are connecting to this blockchain, your machine will be get a software piece of a software code, and that will be act on behalf of you to witness these transactions. So you don't need to be physically there to witness these things, but that software code will be witness these transactions. Because convincing people is easy, but convincing a software code is very difficult. So we can use the software piece of a code, and we can make transition between two untrusted parties in a trusted way using a piece of a software code. So that is what exactly blockchain is doing, and that is connected through this internet mechanism, where each and every person in the corner of the world can easily get connected, and each and every transition that are going through this process will be witnessed there. So let's see how this process happens in the real world. So when there's a new transaction happens, so there will be a time period for Bitcoin. So each 10 minutes there will be a new block will be created, and that block will be goes and tied up with the previous blocks that are already there in the Bitcoin network. So each of these block will be contain multiple transactions, and all of these transactions and any other data will becomes as a summary, and that summary will be summary will be go through a process called SHA-256 hashing algorithm, and they will be create a fingerprint for that. So that fingerprint hash will becomes as a ID for that block, and then that block will be connected with the previous block using that previous transaction ID or previous hash. So this process will be goes like a linked list process where each block will be connected with the previous block as they have the reference of this previous block. This is how this blockchain chain will be maintained, and how these blockchain blocks will be created. It will be created through a mining process, and we'll be look that into a next video. In future videos we'll be look how these blocks will be created, and what is the technical process behind these blockchain block creations and how this happens. So for now we can have an overall idea that there will be blocks created, and each block will be contain a list of transactions, and the summary of that transaction will becomes in a form of a hash. And once we're having this kind of a link process, what happens is if someone goes into a one block and if they change that hash, then the previous hash also will be changed and the link will be break. So to compromise this one, what they need to do is they need to go back to the previous transaction, the latest block, and then they need to update those things to match with this current previous hash. So doing this process in one machine is very easy because you can get your machine, you can break one of the transactions in the block, and then you can update the next blocks and the block that comes after that as well. But once you do this process, that version of this block or this blockchain won't match with the any other user's blockchain, because you updated this your blockchain version, and other users blockchain version it's still not updated. So what you need to do it is you need to update at least 51% of the users in the blockchain network to make this change as a valid update. But to do that one, it's very computationally, it's very cost, and time wise also it will be too cost, because if you're taking a Bitcoin blockchain or any other popular blockchains, there are billions of users out there, so you need to at least make half of them to compromise into this process. So that is very costly, and that is very difficult in terms of using, even using supercomputers, that is seems like very difficult. And even if someone do this one, then they are wasting so much of money and they are doing this process. But once this thing was actively noticed in the Bitcoin network, then people will be create a fork and they can move through this. So all these technical matters will be discussed detail in another video. So for this one, it's about how you can explain blockchain to any person in a easier manner. And once this block was created, how this block distribution will happen is, once this block will be created by a miners, and once the miner was created a block, that will be added to their chains, and that block will be transferred to distributed to all the accounts that are in the blockchain network. So all the accounts in the network will be get this block, and they will be tied up with their previous block, and this is how they will be maintained the same version of the blockchain other users as well. So all the users will be have the same version of the blockchain in their networks, and that will be maintained a single valid proof of the ledger kind of a thing, and that will be maintained throughout all the users in the blockchain network. So this is the same process will happens in the Bitcoin as well as Ethereum, but it differs from some other blockchains as well. So each blockchain will have the different mechanisms to create these blocks, but overall the basic fundamental is this is how the blockchain will be created, this is how the blocks will be created, and this is how the blockchain will be maintained for a throughout all the period that from the starting from the current process. And as you can see in this Bitcoin network, you have more than 42 million wallet users currently and more than 100,000 nodes. So compromising all of these people into one of your false transactions, so once you update your transaction, that is very difficult, and even at least you want to compromise 51% of the network, so that is pretty difficult and time costly. So that's why making any transaction into the blockchain is more secure. In a overall conclusion, so we can say, like, if you want to transfer any asset between two untrusted parties in a trusted manner, then we can use blockchain for that process. So that asset can be anything, that can be money, or that can be a land registry deed, or that can be a vehicle registrations, or that can be a data, or that can be a medical record. So whatever data that we want to transfer between two untrusted parties, we can use blockchain technology, and that is why blockchain technology is more popular and more trustworthy in terms of transparency and all. So thank you guys for watching this video, and please leave your comments in the comment sections, and if you have any questions, please comment it there. And we are looking for any top if you are looking for any topics to be mentioned in the future videos, please mention those things in the comments as well. So do subscribe our channel and click the bell icon for future videos notifications, and like this video, and please leave your comments in the comment section. Thank you guys.
Decentralization Media.